Welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker will dive into the wonderful world of continuous integration, continuous delivery, which I am told does not mean just keep the beers coming until I tell you no, which is what happened to me, and I believe to him last night. So, but considering that, he seems to be in very good shape. So, please welcome with me, Lukas Kosinski.
Hi guys, I really hope that the amount of beer I drank yesterday won't influence my performance. Hi, welcome to my presentation about continuous integration, continuous delivery stuff. It's actually a premiere of this presentation, so I hope that you will enjoy that. A few words about me. I'm a CEO of SciStudio, Qt consulting company. We are like a baby Kid Ape. I'm myself a Qt developer. I often describe myself as a retired former developer because I don't code that much anymore. And well, actually from the beginning, I was that kind of a guy who wanted something other. So I shared my time between coding and marketing and other stuff. So I don't claim the title of genius or an expert in neither DevOps nor Qt. But what legitimates me to talk about this stuff today? Well, the fact that I actually introduced CI/CD in many projects. I was working for clients from various industries, and I did that for both Qt and non-Qt projects. Personally, I am an amateur football player on the lowest league of official Polish football league, and I'm also a happy father of 6 guinea pigs. Yeah, so what I'm going to talk about today? Well, actually, I struggled for a moment to design agenda for this presentation because, yeah, here we have many experienced developers here, but we also have leaders, managers, and it also goes online. So I thought that I will design this presentation in a way that everybody learns something. So first, I'm going to start with benefits of introducing CI/CD in a project. I'm going to give you exact arguments that you can take and go and tell your managers why it's worth doing that. Then I asked myself what I would like to learn, assuming that I don't know anything about CI/CD. So we are going to have some basic explanations, what you can do for a Qt project and stuff like that. Then we are going to have a practical example how to do that with GitLab CI/CD. And then the last element would be introducing CI/CD in legacy projects. Then we are going to summarize the presentation, and then we are going to have short Q&A session. So first, let me tell you the benefits of introducing CI/CD. But before that, I would like to tell you a story. That's a story of a company in which I worked as a developer a long time ago. And yeah, there was that company from medical industry. I don't want to criticize them because, after all, what matters in running a company are financial results, and those were great in that company. So they had like 4 Windows-only applications and 1 application that was for both Mac and Windows. And it was serving like probably hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, and since 2011, there was only 1 guy working on all of those applications. And I actually appreciate his skills. He's probably the best Qt developer that I know. But the thing is that there was never enough time to do things properly. There were no tests, there were no conventions, there were no CI/CD, of course. So from the beginning, I was saying, hey, we are giving this up to testers so often. Let's automate that stuff. Let's do some tests. Let's introduce CI/CD. Yeah, but they did not want to listen to me. So I finally gave up. And once upon a time, they asked me to prepare another release for Mac. It was not done in 2 years or something like that, so there was no documentation, so I really struggled to do that. I needed to build a lot of random dependencies. I need to build old Qt WebKit module from Qt4 and add it to Qt5 installation. Yeah, that was a real effort, but I finally did that. I prepared a release. In the meantime, a lot of things changed. Apple services changed. Nettorization stuff was added. So it was also a challenge to do that, but I did that. Then I prepared another release and another. So then I prepared a script to do that automatically. But because nobody except me had macOS setup ready, I was the only person who was able to prepare a release for macOS. And once upon a time, they asked me to prepare a release on Friday. Yeah, of course, it's an excellent idea to prepare a release on Friday. I did that. I finished working for that day. It was already 7 p.m. I was chilling out with my fiancée, and they called my cell phone from USA, and they told me that, Lucas, we need another release now. And the thing was that testers found some bug. It was really one-line fix, but they had nobody to actually prepare a release for that. So I need to sit and do that. So I was the only person who was able to prepare a release on Mac, and on the other side, the other guy was the only person who was able to prepare a release on Windows, because there were some scripts, there were some configurations, but it was working only for him. With CI/CD setup, it would be done on organizations, servers, runners, whatever, and you would never depend on a single guy. When I was leaving that company, they asked me to keep my macOS setup in case they want to release another version. Yeah, that was the last company in which I worked as a developer. So now, having this story in mind, let's list actual benefits of introducing CI/CD in a project. Well, so first of all, in CI/CD you can put tests, some analysis, and then you have a reduced risk of introducing a mistake into your product. The reduced risk of releasing faulty software. Obviously, you do not depend on a single developer. You save time, nerves. It's just comfortable to have CI/CD in place. All the stuff that are in your process are more straightforward. And comprehensive CI/CD is also some kind of a documentation, because then you have your entire process from introducing a change to giving it to the end user in one place. So it's a kind of a documentation as well. So if we think about that, all of those benefits actually boil down to two things, to time and safety. I was actually thinking about replacing this clock icon with a $sign, because in the world of software development, time is our actual currency. So for real, the benefits of introducing CI/CD are money and safety. And believe me, as I run a company, money and safety are my biggest concerns. So I know that CI/CD has a real impact on the business. Yeah, so those were benefits. Now let's talk about the basics of CI/CD, what it is and whatsoever. First, let's reveal what this fancy acronym means. So CI stands for all the stuff that you need to do to ensure that your software is ready to see the light of day, that your code base is not broken. It can be, for Qt project, it can be static code analysis, it can be compiling, it should be compiling, it can be unit, integration, regression, GUI tests, and stuff like that. CD stands for continuous delivery or continuous deployment. The difference between two of them is that with continuous deployment, the last step, which is giving an actual app to the user, for example, pushing it to App Store or pushing it to your server, is automated, and with continuous delivery, that last step is rather manual. What you can do for Qt project, saying about CD, you can code sign your application, you can prepare installers, app bundles, packages, stuff like that. Yeah, that's a template with which we usually start designing CI/CD in Safe Studio. It's just a start point, so it actually depends on the project. But we have static code analysis, we build application, we test it, we pack it, we then deploy it to app stores or wherever you want your application to be. There's only one rule when you design CI. The goal is always to keep your software in releasable state. And what does it mean? It means that your main master branch should be holy. It should be possible to take it at any moment and release a new version. Yeah, think about that. Now imagine that you have nice and shiny CI/CD pipeline in place. So there are still some rules that you should follow in order to ensure that you take from it as much as possible. The first thing is that, despite having this CI/CD in place, you should always first run all the checkings, all tests locally. So if some tests do not pass locally, so there is no sense to push it to remote, right? The other thing is to be disciplined, because even the best CI/CD configuration won't catch everything. The responsibility for the quality of code that you write is still on you, right? And sometimes people forget about it. The last thing is to always optimize pipeline time. CI/CD jobs are executed on real devices, on real computers, and it takes time to execute them. It takes resources, and you also have colleagues in a team. So when you all start a lot of pipelines in the same moment, and it takes long, then you need to have time for a coffee or something and stop working because you wait for the results. So that's why I always suggest to keep your pipeline as short as possible. Of course, it's not always possible to keep it in minutes, but just optimize it. For those who don't know how to actually set up CI/CD, I would like to talk about the tools that you would need to have. So you would have some service to host code. I mean something like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Any more word about that, because all of you have a favorite service already, right? Optionally, you may have a repository to keep artifacts, products of CI/CD pipelines, like installers, packages, bundles. You may want your own storage to keep them. But the heart of CI/CD are actually CI/CD solution and tasks runner. CI/CD solution is just a stuff that takes care of triggering the pipeline and managing it. And the runner is a device. It can be your computer. It can be a PC that is located in your office. It can be some rented server. You can get shared runner through some of the solutions. And I'm going to shortly talk about how to choose solution and tasks runner. So think about solutions, how to choose the right one. I have to admit that I do not recognize half of those solutions here. Yeah, there are plenty of them. To my mind, they are really similar. There are, of course, some differences. They have their own advantages. For example, Jenkins is agnostic of code hosting service. It's popular, it's nice. I use GitLab CI/CD, which has great user experience. It's really easy to set up that. I will then show you an example. Yeah, so what else besides CI/CD solution influences your pipeline? Well, your releases policy, your code base structure, your technology, your very own process. So my recommendation is rather to design the pipeline in a way that it can be run anywhere. So then CI/CD solution doesn't matter. What about a runner? Well, a runner, as I said, is a device that executes all the jobs in a pipeline. For example, it builds the application, it runs tests. It's also a matter of security if you want to use your own device that is somewhere in the office, or you want to use shared one. Of course, it all depends on what platforms do you handle. If you develop an application for Linux and Windows, then just go and get a regular PC. If you, on the other hand, develop applications for iOS and Mac, so then I would recommend you giving a Mac Mini. I think that it's relatively cheap. I mean, it should be affordable for most of the companies. And on one Mac Mini, you can actually handle 5 platforms. You can handle Android, macOS, iOS. You can get their Windows virtual machine, and you can also get their Linux virtual machine, or just build Linux with Docker. Yeah, and that would be all regarding the basics. Now, a practical example, the example using GitLab. But before that, just to ensure that we are on the same side, I just wanted to explain some of the terms. So first of all, what's the pipeline? Pipeline is like a top component. It's that. It's like the flow of your process, from introducing a change to, for example, delivering it. Pipelines consist of stages and jobs. Jobs are like the single task that needs to be done. For example, building an application on Windows is one job, and building an application on Linux is another one. And you can optionally organize them in stages. There are some defaults. You can do that optionally, but I prefer to do that because it's a key concept to actually give your pipeline some shape. For example, to organize the order in which jobs should be executed. For an instance, you would prefer to first build your application before testing it. If it doesn't build, there is no point in testing it. And what we see here is actually the example that we are going to have. I prepared a simple Qt application, but with all the respect to your knowledge, to your skills and your experience, I want to show the code because it's just an empty window. Yeah, but it works on all of those platforms. I use Qt 6. I use CMake as the build system. I use Ruby for scripts. And we are going to first build the application on every platform, then run tests on desktops, and then we are going to prepare installers, application bundles. The full example with code and everything is hosted online. You will get a link later. So before, I think that there should be a screenshot here, but before we start designing CI/CD, we have to have runners in place. runners that will execute jobs. We will need to have a runner to execute iOS and Mac jobs. We'll have one to execute tasks for Windows, Android, and one for Linux. Actually, adding next runners is really easy. You just go to GitLab CI/CD settings, and then there are instructions of commands that you just then put in your command line. What you may want to specify here are tags. Tags are used to distinguish what jobs should be executed on a particular runner. For example, Windows jobs won't succeed on Mac Mini, right? So I would prefer Windows runner to take care of Windows jobs. Yeah, so the heart of CI/CD is GitLab CI YAML file. That's where you define stages and jobs. And take a look here. Here I define stages. I told that we are going to have 3, building, test, and packing. Yeah, and here we have the first job, which is building an application on Mac. It's part of stage build. Some jobs have things in common. For example, all macOS jobs will have all of those variables, environment, tags set up in the same way. So that's why I prepare something that I call templates. Templates are like invisible jobs. They are not executed. You just start the name with a dot. And then I like to put them in the other file, which I include here, just to keep my main GitLab CI YAML file clean. Yeah, and then I just tell job to extend this template. And then we have a part to execute actual commands that needs to be done. Here I could put all the commands that I actually used in a script, which are removing the old build folder, creating new one to have a new clean build, running CMake, then building. But I prefer to put that in one script, so then I can also locally just run one command and have it done. We have artifacts. Artifacts can be used to optimize the pipeline time. So we have build stage, test stage, and pack stage. There would be no sense in running build again before running tests. I actually prefer to just move the product of build job, which is a build folder, to next stage, to just then execute test, to not build it. I can tell it to expire after 15 minutes because after then tests are done, so I don't need this build folder anymore. Yeah, and when I maybe I should also mention that this file here, it should be placed in the root folder of your repository on GitLab. Yeah, and when you push it, you then should see something like that. You should see one job in one stage, nothing like that. If it succeeds, you should see a green tick mark. When it fails, it should be a red cross. So now let's add another things like testing and packing the application. As you can see, it's very similar to what we had previously. I execute the same script. I just tell it to do something else with some custom variables, and artifacts are different because, well, after testing the application, I don't need the entire build folder anymore. I just take it. And after packing, I should have a disk image here, and I set that it should be expired only after 1 week. And also think about optimization of pipeline time. It doesn't make sense to generate installers packages with every single push, right? So that's why I use only keyword to tell GitLab to execute this job only on the main branch. So yeah, just to save some time. Yeah, and after pushing to the remote, that's what I should see. What if we would like to, yeah, and I can download the artifacts, like for example, the disk image here, and then give it to testers or to guys that will then release it. I can also see job logs of every job in case I want to see what was happening, in case I want to see, I want to debug why a particular job failed. So what we do if we would like to add another platform to this CI/CD configuration. I would start with preparing another template in which I would prepare an environment for Windows. And then I would prepare 3 another jobs that would be very similar to what we had for macOS. The only actual difference is that here I run the other scripts and artifacts are of course different. Yeah, as you can see, it's boring as it should be because when you design a CI/CD in such a manner, then it's just easier to manage it. Yeah, and after pushing it to GitLab, that's what you should actually see. You should see 6 jobs this time. They are placed in the correct stages, and that's it. Yeah, and again, with all the respect to your time, I won't show doing exactly the same for the other platforms because, believe me, it's exactly the same. Only Ruby script changes, but it's online. There is nothing interesting. If you are interested, you can then see it. Let's talk about another concept. So take a look at this CMake snippet. This is stuff that I use for preparing iOS application. And to prepare iOS application, I need to code sign application. And for that, I need to use some developer's identity. Yeah, and let's say that this team ID variable here that I need to put, it comes from Apple services. Let's say that it's something sensitive, something that I want to keep as a secret. I don't want everybody that has access to repository to see and use this variable. What I can do? I can specify it as a environment variable, and in such a manner I can use it in CMake. But what should I do if I would like to keep it on CI/CD? Well, I could put it in the GitLab CI YAML file, but as it's placed in the repository, everyone that has access to repository would also see the value of this variable, right? So that's why GitLab has something, some variables feature. You just go to your project settings, to CI/CD settings, and there is a tab for variables. You then specify a variable of particular key with particular value. You can mark it as a masked, so then its value is not displayed in job logs. Yeah, but there is still a possibility that somebody would introduce some malicious code. Let's say somebody will add to our script something that would send value of this variable to his server or whatever. It can be some sensitive password. So what do we do then? The easy solution is to make yourself a maintainer in the project and adjust permissions in a way that only maintainers can push to protected branches and merge requests to protected branches. With such approach, before something would end up on the protected branch, you would need to review it first, right? And then you would spot the malicious piece of code. And you can mark variable as protected here, so it would be only exposed to protected branches. Yeah, and that's all about the example. We don't have time for that, but I wanted to highlight some nice features that you can also use in GitLab CI/CD. You can include templates from the other repository. That's something nice because you can then make your own company templates that would be shared between various projects, and you can also make your CI/CD more secured, because then only specific people would have access to those templates. Your process from introducing a change to giving it to the end user may include some manual tasks, some manual testing. So you can also trigger jobs manually. For example, first you can generate an installer. The pipeline would stop. You would give it to the manual testers, and after they approve it, then you can execute a deploy step. And of course, it's a good practice to use Docker for Linux and Android tasks. Yeah, so those were my feelings about setting up CI/CD for GitLab. Now it's going to be short. Few words about introducing CI/CD in legacy projects. From what I see, I don't know, maybe 30% of software projects have CI/CD in place, maybe less. And it's often an argument that you have a project in place already, and it's true. Introducing CI/CD to existing projects is just more difficult, because then you cannot, the process already exists and you cannot adjust your software to the process, and it does not evolve with the project. You can adapt to what you have already. And with existing projects, low code may be of low quality. There can be a huge number of issues because you didn't have static code analysis, you didn't have auto tests, you have a poor modularity, the build and deploy processes can take time, and you have your leaders and managers that keep saying that there is no time to introduce CI/CD. We need to focus on features and bug fixes. So what would be my suggestion then on what to introduce first, what to automatize first in legacy projects? Static analysis in such projects wouldn't make much sense, because there would be so many issues, right? We don't have tests to automate. So I would start with something simple, that is just compiling, building an application to ensure that that somebody does not cause the application to be not buildable on particular platform. Then I would go with packaging, because that's something that is recurring over time. You do that from time to time. And then I would sit down and think about saving some manual testers' time with GUI regression tests. Because for existing projects, GUI does not change that often. Of course, it depends on the project. And then, with that, we can start thinking about refactoring, but don't treat it as another big thing, another project to refactor entire code base at once. Rather, take a single functionality, put it in some module, and do it in a nice way. Prepare tests for that single module, run run static analysis for that single module. And after some time, you would have higher percentage of your code base covered with CI/CD. Yeah, so those were my feelings about introducing CI/CD to legacy projects. Now let's summarize the presentation. Of course, CI/CD makes software engineers more productive, happier. they produce more reliable software. CI/CD has an impact on the business, right? I would also suggest you to rather start with something small, like compiling and packaging. Yeah, but what I would like you to remember from my talk is that we can either have high-quality software that is easy to maintain over a long period, or we can have a code base that is full of issues and we struggle to release another versions. Well, the choice is, of course, up to you. The decision fully depends on you. The choice is either to introduce CI/CD or not to introduce. I know that I choose wisely. Yeah, so that was that. That was my presentation. Thank you for listening. I wanted to encourage you to contact me in case you have some questions. Also, here is the link to the example that I was talking about. Full example is there. So in case you want to take a look, feel free to do that. I also.
Are there any questions? Yes, over here on the left, Vladimir.
Vladimir?
One sec, we have a microphone coming just for the recording. Thank you.
My voice is not loud enough. You define a way how to submit an app on a macOS and iOS from a command line for review on App Store?
Well, saying about macOS, we use a custom script for that. Saying about iOS and Android, we use Fastlane. It's an open source project that you can use for that, and with that you can release an application to App Store and Google Play. And also, from time to time, we use Google Firebase distribution for mobile applications. It's also nice for testing because then you can, somebody non-technical can choose a particular version of app and then select who would get it, testers, investors, whatever.
Okay. So the tool's called Fastlane, yes?
Fastlane.
Okay.
Yeah, it's written together.
There was another question. Yes, please.
So, can you also integrate package managers with the continuous integration and continuous delivery platforms?
Just to ensure, what do you mean by that?
So, for example, in the template file, you would set up right there some paths to, I don't know, some other dependency. You have like CMake and stuff like this. So whenever, I don't know, you add a CMake command that is supported in, I don't know, CMake 21, you know. You need to update the, I don't know, maybe the template, then you need to go on the environment and install there before running any builds and install the new CMake and stuff like that. So if you have a package manager, you just, I don't know, could...
Yeah, of course. What's your name?
Alexandru.
Alexander means that it would be also good to put setting up the entire environment to just set up runner in CI/CD in case it's not in place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. That would be good to do that. Nice suggestion.
You can do some of that with Docker, right, or with containers in general, but only for the platforms that actually support.
Yeah, it's actually really nice to use Docker in such cases, but of course we can do that only for Android and Linux builds, right? Then we can, yeah, you are right that it's good to have a build pipeline environment in place always, because yeah, it can work on my computer, but it can does not work on yours. So yeah, that's would be nice to have.
You need to do it manually not from the platform itself.
Yeah, you could do that manually, of course, just to also prepare some script that would download everything and ensure that it's there. And that's a case, especially when you use runners that are, for example, shared by GitLab, that don't have a Qt installation in place. So then you need to set up, and you can do that in a template file.
Another question? Yeah. Sorry, could you wait for the microphone?
Yeah, that actually is very easy to do. We do like apt-get package number, blah, blah, blah. That works perfectly fine. And GitLab also supplies Windows runners. I'm pretty sure they do.
Thank you.
Yes. That's right.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, there's one in the
There is
back.
one.
There have been some cases of hijacked runners in open source projects. Some dudes hijacked the runners to mine bitcoins. Do you have any security advice?
Use your own. Yeah, that's my suggestion. Then you have the full control.
There's a question over there.
Hello,
Okay.
my name is Radu. I have a technical question. So I saw that one parameter you use to configure the, I think the expiry of each stage of the pipelines. I think for the compilation and for the testing was like 15 minutes, and for the packaging stage was like 1 week.
Yeah, exactly, because
What does that mean? Like if the stage hangs, then it's killed in 15 minutes, or its output is erased after 15 minutes? Like, let's say for the packaging stage, you'd keep the outputs, the deliverables for 1 week.
Exactly. That's the case. Well, with that expires in keyword, you specify how long after the execution of this job, the artifact, the product, the output should be kept. And yeah, it was 15 minutes for first stages because, well, I don't need to keep a build folder forever. I want to keep the disk image, the installer for a week.
I see. Thanks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Radu.
Actually, I would have a follow-up question. What happens when a stage fails? Because then you likely want the artifacts to be around so you can debug it. So
If the job fails, then you don't have artifacts.
then they don't get arrested.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can design CI/CD in a way that only when the entire stage succeeds, only then it moves to another one. By default, when there are runners available, because there can be a possibility that some job in a stage, let's say building an application on Android takes few minutes, but building an application for Linux, it's a moment, right? So by the default behavior is that the next stage is already started, just to not wait and not to waste time, but you can also adjust that in a way that first all the jobs in particular stage needs to be done and needs to succeed before you move to another one.
Okay, if there are no more questions, let's thank Lukas again. Thank you very much.